And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. We do have some breaking news we want to report to you out of the world of entertainment. We're getting this in from TMZ. Alex Michelson there at Fox 11 in Los Angeles has it in this tweet here that Sean Diddy Combs has been arrested after being indicted by a grand jury in New York. That's according to the New York Times, also according to TMZ as well here. It's not immediately clear what charges.
Breaking news. Sean P. Diddy Combs has been arrested and indicted on federal charges. The disgraced music icon has faced startling allegations for months of rape, sexual assault, physical abuse, gun...
Breaking news. Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs has reportedly been arrested at a New York hotel. While details are still emerging, we have the latest updates on this surprising development. Stay tuned as we bring you more on this unfolding story.
News tonight, Sean Diddy Combs has been arrested in a Manhattan hotel this evening after a grand jury indicted the music mogul. His attorney tells CNN that he is currently being processed. The charges are unclear as of this moment. Joining us now is CNN's entertainment reporter Elizabeth Wagmeister, and also with us CNN chief legal correspondent Ellie Honig. Elizabeth, you were a big part of revealing some details about Diddy's conduct in private over the course of the last couple of months. That video led to a lot more scrutiny on what he has been accused of. What do we know at this point about what this case might ultimately be about?
Abby, at the moment, we don't know what the charges are. I have information that he was arrested tonight at a Manhattan hotel. He is currently being processed. I heard from his attorney they are still maintaining his innocence. They said that in anticipation of these charges that Diddy relocated to New York last week. And here's a statement that I have from his attorney. He says, "We are disappointed with the decision to pursue what we believe is an unjust prosecution of Mr. Combs by the U.S. Attorney's Office." He goes on to say that he is an imperfect person, but is not criminal. Now, Abby, that video that you just spoke about was a few months ago when our team broke this disturbing video of Diddy violently assaulting his ex-girlfriend, Cassandra Ventura, better known as the singer, her stage name, Cassie. Now, up until this point, when we broke this video, Diddy had denied the allegations against him. Cassie is one of 10 civil suits against Diddy, 9 of which he is accused directly of sexually assault. Up until that video, he denied everything. After that video came out, he changed his tone. He apologized for his conduct in that video. But I have to tell you, Abby, just as of last week, a former member of Diddy Combs, which was one of the bands from Making the Band, Diddy's show that was on MTV, she sued him for sexual assault and other disturbing allegations, and he denied that. So he continues the denials, and he still maintains his innocence, even though he has been arrested tonight.
And Ellie, not a huge amount of information available tonight, but Elizabeth brought up something that I want you to give us a little bit of insight into. Diddy is here in New York, in Manhattan. He apparently came here in anticipation that something like this might happen. What should we understand about what that might mean? It could very well be that this is a federal arrest being processed here in New York.
So, Abby, there are some important things we do not know, including the specific charges that have been lodged against Sean Combs. But there are some really important things we do know. First of all, based on the attorney's statement, based on our reporting, this is a federal prosecution. It's not a state prosecution. The fact that he's being processed in Manhattan tells me that's the Southern District of New York. That's consistent with the reporting that the Southern District of New York had been handling this case. That's the office I used to work at. That's an office that sort of specializes in high stakes cases. Just in the last year or so, Southern District of New York, just as an example, has successfully prosecuted Sam Bankman-Fried, Senator Robert Menendez. The other thing that we do know is a grand jury has indicted Sean Combs, meaning they found probable cause that he committed at least one federal crime. Now, as to what happens next, there will be, likely tomorrow or within the next couple days, but usually in the SDNY, you try to do it the next day, there will be an arraignment, meaning Sean Combs will appear in court with his lawyers. There are no cameras in federal court. He will be advised of the charges against him, and he will almost certainly enter a not guilty plea. But the key thing to watch for is then we'll have the question of bail. Will prosecutors agree to let him out on bail, Will prosecutors ask the judge to lock him up pending trial? That could end up in a contentious argument. So these are things that are going to play out over the next 24 or 48 hours. And finally, Abby, with respect to the charges themselves, it's important to note, we've all seen that video, but assault and sexual assault are not federal crimes. Those are prosecuted in state court. So what I expect to see when we see this indictment is some sort of crime with some element of organization to it, sex trafficking, something along those lines, if it's based on some of the allegations we've heard.
And of course, back in March, his homes in LA and in Miami were raided. All of this leading up to this moment. Elizabeth and Ellie, a lot more to this story will be coming up in the coming days.
Diddy Combs, a giant in the music industry, was reportedly detained by law enforcement earlier today at a luxury hotel in New York City. Witnesses say the arrest occurred in the early morning, with police arriving swiftly at the scene. While the specific charges are still unknown, sources suggest it may be linked to an ongoing investigation that has been kept under wraps until now.
Breaking news, Sean P. Diddy Combs has been arrested and indicted on federal charges. The disgraced music icon has faced startling allegations for months of rape, sexual assault, physical abuse, gun trafficking, and drug trafficking. On Monday evening, he was indicted by a grand jury in New York. He was taken into custody in Manhattan, where he's been for the last week in anticipation of these charges. Now, the charges haven't been made public just yet. In fact, the indictment was sealed. But according to the New York Times, a person familiar with the prosecution says they believe Diddy faces charges of racketeering and sex trafficking. Diddy's legal team said they were disappointed with the decision to prosecute, but mentioned their client has been cooperative with law enforcement. A statement from his legal team reads, quote, Sean Diddy Combs is a music icon, self-made entrepreneur, loving family man, and proven philanthropist who has spent the last 30 years building an empire, adoring his children, and working to uplift the Black community. He is an imperfect person, but is not criminal. To his credit, Mr. Combs has been nothing but cooperative with this investigation, and he voluntarily relocated to New York last week in anticipation of these charges. Please reserve your judgment until you have all the facts. These are the acts of an innocent man with nothing to hide, and he looks forward to clearing his name in court. All this comes about 6 months after 2 of Diddy's homes were raided by federal investigators back in March. Then we couldn't confirm Diddy was the target of the Homeland Security raids or what information the feds collected. Most of what we know came from the 5 civil suits with a series of shocking allegations ranging from the 90s until now. Multiple people alleged Diddy raped them, drugged them, and recorded all of that. We can't confirm it just yet, but it was likely those civil lawsuits that led up to the federal investigation and later Diddy's arrest. This is breaking news that is constantly developing, so stay with Law and Crime for all the latest updates. For now, let's take a look back at the allegations leading up to Diddy's arrest. For the past 3 decades, we've come to know Sean Combs as multiple different names. P. Diddy, Puffy, Puff Daddy, Puff. The 54-year-old is a rapper, entrepreneur, and label exec. Things changed for him on March 25th when Homeland Security raided 2 of his homes, one in California and the other in Florida. There's no word yet whether Diddy himself was the target of those raids, and he's not been charged criminally. That being said, some allegations of his criminal past became a major topic of conversation when news of the raids broke.
That's what was so stunning when Cassie Ventura filed her lawsuit earlier this year. It kind of broke the dam, and it was just the floodgates opened and all of these other allegations started to come to the surface.
That's Melba Pearson, a former prosecutor who's followed the Diddy case meticulously since it broke. Her interest actually dates back farther than just last.
Eyewitnesses described a significant police presence outside the hotel as Diddy was calmly escorted out by officers. Onlookers were shocked to see one of hip-hop's biggest icons being led away, sparking a wave of speculation on social media about the reasons behind the arrest. Both fans and critics are in disbelief, questioning what could have triggered this unexpected development.
Diddy's Bad Boy for Life mantra was just a song. And we know about the allegations now that have happened in the past couple months via these civil suits. But if we go back, I know that you have kind of followed Diddy for a while and you're pretty knowledgeable about that era. From the 90s until now, prior to these civil lawsuits being filed, Was there talk of wrongdoing on Diddy's behalf?
There really wasn't. To compare him to R. Kelly, for instance, there were rumors swirling around R. Kelly from the beginning, and that started off with his marriage to a very underage Aaliyah, and that's when folks were like, okay, something doesn't seem right here. But like, kind of put it to the side, just kind of put a pin in it for a few decades until all the bombshell allegations and ended up being proved in a court of law came forth. I feel like with Diddy, we didn't hear that much. We knew that he partied hard. We knew that he was always going to high profile events and all of that. But I personally have never heard any rumors surrounding any wrongdoing or anything having to do with him. This is an artist who really came to prominence in the 90s. We remember all of the videos. He was very close with Biggie Smalls, who also tragically lost his life back in the late 1990s, early 2000s. And so he was somebody who had this whole orbit around him, and so many different artists like Maze and all these different folks that sprung out from this record label and orbit that they were in. So he had a huge impact on what R&B and hip hop looked like in the 90s and the 2000s, and continued to be influential today in terms of other artists that have gained prominence and gained fame, as well as him as a producer having this really huge presence in the industry. So absolutely, this is a bombshell, and this is something where the impact is going to be reverberating around the globe for a variety of reasons.
But during this era, Diddy did have some trouble with the law. Back in 1999, he was arrested and charged in a shooting at a New York nightclub. His then-girlfriend Jennifer Lopez and rapper Shine were also arrested. J-Lo's charges were dropped, but it was Shine who faced the most serious charges: 3 counts of attempted murder and criminal possession of a weapon. Ultimately, both Diddy and Shine went to trial. Diddy was acquitted, but Shine was convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison. He was released in 2009 and deported back to his home country of Belize. If we're looking at it in the 1999 lens, or the early 2000s when they went to trial, what was everyone making of it then?
So I think people were not horrified per se. I think they looked at it as, well, this is part and parcel of the hip hop industry. I don't think it was very shocking because, there's definitely a perception, somewhat reality as well, that there is violence in the hip hop community and sort of that beef between different groups or different labels. We all know about the East Coast, West Coast beef that was going on during the 90s with Tupac on one side, Biggie on the other. So this was something that was an outgrowth of that time frame. So I don't think folks were super shocked at that juncture. I think what was more shocking was sort of Jennifer Lopez's involvement in all of this, because I don't think, even though she was like, yeah, I'm Jenny from the block, I don't think anybody really saw her as really going to be that quote unquote that chick who is coming with the firearm and is going to hold it down and ride or die for her man. I don't think people really saw that of her. So I think that was the most shocking part of the case back in 1999.
So we've got these allegations that Diddy was responsible as the shooter, but also allegations that J-Lo carried the weapon that Diddy used in the shooting. What's interesting here is that Cassandra Ventura, known publicly as the singer Cassie, says Diddy made her do the same thing. She filed a lawsuit in November of last year, laying out some pretty severe allegations about Diddy. To start, there's that gun allegation that on at least 2 occasions, Diddy demanded Cassie hold his gun in her purse. The lawsuit goes on to state, quote, "There was no clear reason why Mr. Combs required her to hold his gun, except to reinforce to his young girlfriend that he was violent, powerful, and dangerous."
Not only did Jennifer Lopez allegedly bring the gun to the club, now we're also looking at years later, Cassie coming forward and saying that Diddy forced her to carry a gun with her when they went out to different events. So again, I think that this is more along the lines of, when you look at this from a domestic violence lens, from the standpoint of the abuser being very controlling and demanding certain activities to prove loyalty to basically put yourself in a bad situation where only he can be the one to save you, basically. So in seeing that, the parallels between J-Lo's experience and Cassie's experience, number one, it brings more credibility to what Cassie said in her pleadings, but also, again, it causes us to look at Jennifer Lopez and be like, some of the comments she made about the end of her relationship to Diddy, in terms of, well, there was infidelity, and, she kind of skirted.
The arrest follows weeks of speculation about Diddy's involvement in several controversies. Rumors have circulated about legal disputes tied to his business dealings and personal matters, potentially drawing the attention of authorities. However, none of these claims have been confirmed, and Diddy had largely stayed silent, continuing his usual public appearances despite the ongoing whispers.
Fox, I'm Andrew Kraft. We do have some breaking news we want to report to you out of the world of entertainment. We're getting this in from TMZ. Alex Michelson there at Fox 11 in Los Angeles has it in this tweet here that Sean Diddy Combs has been arrested after being indicted by a grand jury in New York. That's according to the New York Times, also according to TMZ as well here. It's not immediately clear what charges he is facing. So this is quite significant here. I want to just show you some file footage of Diddy over the years. Now, TMZ has an update saying that a law enforcement source is telling them the arrest was scheduled for Tuesday, but something happened that caused the feds to move in a day earlier. So Diddy, if you're just joining us here, was just arrested and taken into federal custody in New York tonight. Sources tell TMZ Homeland Security swooped into a Midtown hotel late Monday where Diddy was staying, and they arrested him. Also, TMZ says we have unconfirmed reports the feds are searching his hotel room. They were told that Diddy was taken to the FBI field office in Manhattan. So you will remember that earlier this year, you remember these scenes over his homes in both Miami and there, as well in Beverly Hills, where those search warrants were issued and those searches of his properties were given, and they were executed there at his homes as part of these ongoing criminal investigations into alleged sex trafficking. Now, at the time, it was very unclear what the search warrants referred to there at the time. But according to TMZ, the arrest tonight is in connection with those searches. And you remember at the time that we were over this story for a very long time that day earlier this year. I'm trying to get an exact date from my producer to jog my memory. March the 25th. So March 25th, the same day, 2 of Diddy's residences were searched by federal law enforcement there in Beverly Hills and his home in Miami in connection to what we knew at the time was an alleged federal sex trafficking investigation. And you remember these scenes, his mansion there in the Holmby Hills and his mansion there in Miami. So this is breaking right now. We are working to get more details. We are working to get more people on the line to help us make sense of what exactly happened today. But all we know right now is that Diddy has been arrested in New York. The New York Times and TMZ both have it. I have it up here at the New York Times. They say this, I'm reading from their piece, that Sean Combs, the music mogul whose career has been upended by sexual assault lawsuits in a federal investigation, was arrested in Manhattan on Monday evening after a grand jury indicted him. Now, this is important. At the time, we brought on legal affairs journalist Megan Cuniff, who is based in Los Angeles, and she noted at the time, back in March, that it looked like these warrants were approved by judges in New York, which led Megan Cuniff to believe at the time that maybe the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York was the lead on these probes and these investigations into federal sex trafficking allegations here. Now, that was Megan Cuniff's supposition at the time. I think it has borne out now because Diddy was arrested by federal authorities in Manhattan. And from what I was told, from what I remember at the time, a judge in New York signed off on the search warrants for the searches of his properties in Los Angeles and in Miami. Now, if we get any more clarification on that, or if Megan Cuniff, who we might bring on, can correct me if I'm wrong here. But at the time, Megan Cuniff, we had asked her, would Diddy be held liable, or would any legal action be taken against him personally in the immediate wake and aftermath of those raids on his mansions in California and Florida? Megan Cuniff at the time told us she didn't believe it would happen immediately, that the feds would present their case most likely to a grand jury, which we now know has been done there in Manhattan. So according to the New York Times, the indictment is sealed. The charges were not announced, so we don't know the charges. But they have a source that says the person familiar with the prosecution, they believe Combs is being charged with racketeering and sex trafficking here. So 7:30 here on the West Coast, 10:30 there on the East Coast. This is a breaking news story right now regarding the music mogul, the hip hop legend, Sean Diddy Combs, being arrested by federal authorities today in Lower Manhattan.
As one of the most successful figures in entertainment, Diddy's arrest is sending shockwaves through the industry. He's not just a Grammy-winning artist and producer, but also a businessman with ventures in fashion, media, and spirits. His influence reaches far beyond music, making this development a potential game changer for his career and legacy. Legal experts are already weighing in, suggesting that if the charges are serious, they could have a lasting impact on his reputation.
Everybody knew that Puff took Tupac blueprint and changed Biggs and Bad Boy in image. I Get Around talked about how fly you was, how many girls you mess with, how many cars you drive, how much money you got, what you willing to do. He took his image. Pac was the first one on the scene wearing Versace shirts. He went and got the same Versace shirts Pac had. Which, all right, some dudes would do that. You would never catch me wearing something else, something that somebody else got. He was knocking down all the women that he thought Pac was knocking down. And what I mean is having sex with them. Why would you want to have sex with women you know for sure a dude that was once cool with you was dealing with? That's that image. Because you got to realize, bruh, Puff and Pac was cool at one time. We know this. Mopreem said that they was going to sign the Bad Boy. So if he's going to sign to Bad Boy, it was because of Corey and them. I put that picture on the internet. I put the picture on my channel of Corey Jones. Is Corey Jones, Corey Jacobs? I think Corey Jacobs and Pac right next to each other. Those was the real bad boys of Bad Boy. You understand? Those are the ones who got the 16 to life sentences. That Pac was gonna go and be with them first. But then Mopreem said when it became just Big and Puff, because Corey and them went to jail, he changed his direction. But nobody know why Pac and Puff fell out like they did. You understand what I'm saying? Nobody know why. But Puff had an obsession with him for whatever reason it was, because he started wanting to act. He started wanting to rap. He had an obsession so bad that at his Grammy Award winning speech, he used the same speech that Pac used. That shit is crazy. So when I say I'm obsessed with talking about Puff and telling y'all the truth, who's obsessed with who? Pac had Sarah before Puff. Allegedly, he had Sally before Puff.
As of now, Diddy's legal team has not issued an official statement, but fans are anxiously awaiting updates. His last public appearance was just days ago at a high-profile New York event, where he appeared in good spirits. It's still unclear what led to his arrest, but insiders suggest there may have been a heated altercation at the hotel prior to police involvement.
You start to look back at her comments, you start to think, ooh, were you in a domestic violence relationship with Diddy, much like how Cassie ended up in a domestic violence relationship with him?
What would have made her want to come forward, and what did you take away from that civil suit?
So the reason why she came forward at this juncture is because New York and California both passed laws around which was called the Adult Survivor Act. So that basically extends the statute of limitations.
But it's interesting that several more people have come forward. There's 4 additional lawsuits to Cassie's, and several of them mention Cassie by name and say, hey, because she came forward and told us about these allegations, we felt comfortable doing the same thing. So did it really backfire for Diddy then?
I think it did, because if this had been settled without any kind of public involvement, any kind of media coverage, these other people may never have come forward. So by, kind of calling her bluff and saying, oh yeah, there's no way you're going to file this, he did himself a whole lot of damage. But I'm glad, because at least now the truth is going to come out and everyone will know who this person is. And now, of course, that kicked everything into high gear in terms of law enforcement involvement and investigations. So as much as this whole thing is sad and sordid, I'm glad that it's coming out so that more survivors can get the closure that they need and that he can be brought to justice for the crimes he's perpetrated on others.
Among those other lawsuits, another filed under the New York Survivors Act by Joy Dickerson Neal. Her allegations date back to 1991 when she was a student at Syracuse University. Joy says Diddy intentionally drugged her, resulting in her being in a physical state where she could not independently stand or walk. Joy also alleges she's a victim of revenge porn because Diddy allegedly recorded the rape and passed around that videotape. According to her suit, Joy demands a jury trial, as does Liza Gardner, who also says Diddy raped her in New York in the 90s. According to her civil suit, Liza and her friend met Diddy at a party and later went with him to an after party where she, quote, was offered more drinks and coerced into having sex with Combs. Liza says Diddy and another man raped her and her friend. Later on, she says Diddy choked her to the point that she lost consciousness. While Jane Doe doesn't list her name in the lawsuit, she does list multiple photos of herself and Diddy. Her allegations date back to 2003 when she was just 17 years old and in 11th grade. Her lawsuit states at this time, Diddy was twice her age and one of the most well-known and influential music artists of all time. Jane Doe alleges Diddy flew her from Michigan to New York on a private plane and raped her in a recording studio. All this leads us back to Lil Rod's 74-page lawsuit that was filed back in February, detailing a laundry list of wild accusations. Melba says all this parallels a trajectory we've seen before.
Oh, it absolutely is a fall from grace. I have no question in my mind that this is going to be the end of Diddy as we know him, right? And the next chapter is going to be him incarcerated, much like R. Kelly. And which is, of course, sad, tragic, and horrible, not only for him, but more importantly for the survivors who have gone through some horrific experiences. But yeah, I think this is definitely going to be the end, because with all of the allegations that have come forward and come forth at this juncture, all the artists that have come forward alleging wrongdoing, I can't see how he gets out of this. I just can't.
According to Lil Rod's lawsuit, he lived with Diddy for months at a time while working on Diddy's Love album. During this time, he says Diddy sexually assaulted him, forced him to have sex with prostitutes, and drugged him. On top of all this, Lil Rod says his allegations are corroborated with hundreds of hours of footage and audio recordings of Mr. Combs, his staff, and his guests engaging in some serious illegal activity because Diddy apparently required Lil Rod to record him constantly. The lawsuit even lays out some pictures like this one, showing Cuba Gooding Jr. with his arm around Lil Rod. According to this suit, Lil Rod alleges Diddy was, quote, grooming him to pass him off to his friends. This fear became reality when Mr. Combs introduced Mr. Jones to Cuba Gooding Jr. while they were on Mr. Combs' yacht. Court documents go on to state, Cuba Gooding Jr. began touching, groping, and fondling Mr. Jones's legs, his upper inner thighs near his groin, the small of his back near his buttocks, and his shoulders. But then there are other defendants listed, like corporations such as Universal Music Group and Motown Records, along with their higher-ups. To understand this, I spoke to entertainment attorney Mitra Ohurian. In addition to these record labels that are listed as defendants, they also list CEOs, a former CEO of Motown Records and then a current CEO of UMG. So I'm wondering why, in addition to these labels, are they listing the CEOs?
Yeah, they're trying to pierce the corporate veil. They're trying to say that, you as individuals also were aware of these things happening.
Someone we know for sure is speaking with investigators, though, is Cassie. Melba says she's not surprised.
I expect that she would have, because again, if she's telling the truth, then she's going to give any evidence that she has. So in terms of if there's recordings she knows existed, right? I mean, she may not have possession of it, but she could be like, listen, in July of 2005, he forced me to do XYZ at, this particular hotel. There may be surveillance footage to show me going in and out of the building. There may be this video that he took of the horrible events that may have happened that day. So now at least law enforcement will know exactly where to look and start to narrow down different timelines, and then also speak to other witnesses or maybe other survivors that were present and victimized at another point in time, but they can help corroborate some of what she's saying, and that is going to help put together the case against Diddy, likely for human trafficking, for sex trafficking, narcotics charges, etc.
So what we believe is that the Cassie lawsuit kind of spurred this investigation. But is it possible that Lil Rod's bombshell lawsuit that came out in February is really what kicked it into high gear? Because there we learned about the many hours, he says hundreds of hours of recordings. And then as we know, federal investigators were at multiple of his homes. Could those two things be correlated?
Oh, they absolutely are. They absolutely are. I would think that the feds or law enforcement was investigating from when Cassie's lawsuit was filed, but now they have additional fuel for the fire. So now in reading Lil Rod's lawsuit, now we're getting into drug use, we're getting into drug trafficking, we're getting into mules, we're getting into pink cocaine. Who knew? And so you're hearing and seeing all of these other allegations that now the feds can be like, okay, now I know I need to look for surveillance tapes. Now I need to look for this aspect. Now I need to speak to these folks because they were listed in Lil Rod's, lawsuit.
All of that leads us up to right now and the speculation of what's next for Diddy. As far as Diddy's name, who's all over multiple of these lawsuits, I mean, he's the main kingpin.
Diddy Borhan Combs has encountered legal trouble in the past, though nothing of this scale in recent years. Known for his resilience and ability to overcome challenges, his supporters remain hopeful that he will clear his name. However, given the seriousness of this situation, the stakes are higher than ever for the music mogul.
For him, first time to the last time, what was that timeline?
Well, if you say the first time, it would have to be in round 90 when he got jumped into a group of ours called the Same Gang.
Literally jumped into.
Right.
Like when I think about jumped into, I mean he's jumped.
Well, he ran first.
Okay,
and
got
then,
it.
And then the guys caught him. And if you look on the back of my book, that's the crew right there. On the back of the book, the younger guys caught him. We was on 44th and 8th Avenue, 144th Street and 8th Avenue. He ran down to 127th
Oh, wow.
Street, and they caught him and they brought him all the way back up. Roughed him up pretty bad.
How bad was it?
It wasn't bad at all, but it was enough to embarrass him real good, because D Ferg, who was one of the, like ASAP Ferg father, he's a rapper. He owned the clothing line. Him and Puff was real close, so he didn't want him hurt too bad. So we just more so embarrassed him. The older guys, like taking champagne bottles, splashing in his face, hitting him with cakes in the head and everything, smack them with cakes and everything. We let the younger guys rough them up, you know what I'm saying? So that was about in 90 when he got into the same gang.
So he's born 69, 90, he's 20, 21 years old when this happens.
Yeah.
Was he tough? Did he have his father was a tough, somebody that was in the military and was linked to Nicky Barnes and Frank Lucas, and he was a heroin dealer. So maybe he had a little bit of the genes, but was he somebody that you would say he was a tough guy, he could stand up, he wasn't afraid?
Puff wasn't no pushover.
Okay.
I don't know why people would think that he was just a total pushover. He knew, like certain guys do, they know who to mess with and who not to mess with.
Got it.
You know what I'm saying? And that's any guys in the street. It's very few guys that don't care who the guy is. You know what I'm saying? Like, when I grew up in St. Louis, we went toe to toe. We didn't care who you was or where you was from or what's your size or nothing like that. We were taught like that. So to get back to your question, it was about 90 when he got jumped in, and he was having a problem at a club called The Building and the Red Zone. The Building is where he did unsigned hype. That's where you seen Queen Latifah, leaders of the new schools. If you looked at that movie Juice, where they did the DJ that was playing, they had the DJ contest, that was The Building, and they filmed it there. So Puff was actually doing the unsigned hype in that place, and he was having problems, and he needed to get the money home.
As the story unfolds, more details are expected to emerge. The hotel, a popular celebrity hotspot, has remained silent, offering no comment on the incident. Security footage from the hotel is likely to play a key role in the investigation, though authorities have not yet revealed if any other individuals were involved in the situation.
He had an obsession so bad that at his Grammy Award winning speech, he used the same speech that Pac used. That shit is crazy. So when I say I'm obsessed with talking about Puff and telling y'all the truth, who's obsessed with who? Pac had Sarah before Puff. Allegedly he had Sally before Puff. And Kim had an obsession or liked Pac so much, she on the red carpet with Tupac's shirt on. Who's obsessed with who?
So you believe Diddy, he only got with Sarah Chapman because Pac, he had her at one point.
And it was a bet in the office. Sarah was messing with an NBA basketball player. Puff bet all the niggas didn't believe that he could get it within 2 weeks. $100. So she actually was a $100 bet that he got.
And who was the NBA player?
I think it was Gary Payton, allegedly. That's what he said. Somebody said, she messed with Gary Payton? I bet you I get it. I bet you I have it within 2 weeks. Me and him and Sarah went to this party in Chicago that he was hosting with the Streets Entertainment. And we went to this store called Cranberry and it's one of those stores like you get fragrance and you get candles, colognes and stuff like that. It's called Cranberry and something. And from that point on, yeah. But you gotta realize, Misa and Kim was friends. Misa and Kim was friends. He started dealing with Kim over Misa. Kim and Sarah was friends. I mean, hand-to-hand pots and pans. They was close. They all used to, Sarah, Kim, and this other girl, I think she was from Atlanta. What's her name? It missed me right now. But they all used to hang together. So then he went from Kim to Sarah.
For now, all eyes are on Diddy and his legal team as the world waits for answers. With so much at stake, the outcome of this arrest could have far-reaching effects on both Diddy's personal life and the entertainment industry. We'll continue to provide updates as more information becomes available. Stay tuned, and thank you for following this developing story. Make sure to check back for the latest details on Diddy's arrest.